The topic of Israel, it's always the Jews. Jews are in charge. They're doing this. Do you think we're here for this news cycle, or do you think we're here? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. I think the Gaza situation was putting a huge spotlight on Israel. That seems to have died down now. The flotilla's gone and the bombing has stopped. That's a big part of it. But I do believe there is a huge percentage of the young male population which are so disenfranchised with the system that they're looking for somebody to blame.
Israel slaughtered 3 additional Palestinian journalists in Gaza on Wednesday alone. So no, the genocide has not stopped and the bombing hasn't stopped, but the faux ceasefire that Trump would like you to believe has been agreed upon by Israel and Hamas is not being respected by Israel at all. So the slaughter campaign continues. But nonetheless, there you have Patrick Bet-David and Andrew Tate discussing the topic of anti-Semitism on the right. And Tate is trying to explain why it's a rising issue on the right. And so before we get to the statements made and whether or not we agree with them, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, there is actually one thing that Andrew Tate says here, actually the core thing he says that I shockingly agree with, because I disagree with everything else that Tate says. But guys, that leads to the really important conversation. There's a problem and there's a solution. Those are 2 different things. A lot of people, not all people, have correctly figured out what the problem is, but I think they've got the wrong solution. So we're gonna talk about all that after Anna gives you the facts.
So let me just preface this by saying that I don't really care what Andrew Tate thinks about literally anything. I think that he's a bad person. I think that he lacks morals. He is not someone I would want family members of mine or children within my family to listen to, because I think that he's a horrible person, period. Okay, that's where I stand on Andrew Tate. Nonetheless, there are people on the right, and you see it all over social media, who are just overtly anti-Semitic, okay? They don't hide it, they blame everything on Jewish people. I have no problem with criticism toward the nation state of Israel, meaning their government, their military. That is very different to me than going after the entirety of the Jewish population or going after people because they're Jewish. With that in mind, as you're probably aware, Tate is a self-professed misogynist who built his brand on demeaning women, and you're gonna get a little taste of that in this next clip. Let's take a look.
Young men are waking up in a world where they stand no chance of having any of the things their fathers had. They're never gonna have a wife who respects them and loves them because their wife's on TikTok and believes she deserves a G-Wagon full of roses. And they believe they need a Lambo at 19. And nobody wants to work a job because jobs don't pay. And nobody wants to go to school because a degree isn't gonna pay. And nobody can save up to buy a house because you can no longer compound your work in dollars. You can't go to work, do an hour's work, put it in the bank, do another hour's work, put it in the bank and save up to buy a house because you're being outpaced by inflation, money printing, all these wars, all this Somali fraud, taxes. You're being outpaced. You can't even save money anymore. So when young men are waking up in a world where their only chance to possibly get rich is effectively gamble on crypto, literally gamble, they're sitting here going, well, this system's broken. Who's behind this system? Why am I living in such a broken system? And there is a theory, and there's many theories as to who's in charge of the world or who built this system or why the system's so broken. There is a theory that it's the Jews.
Oh, really? There are young right-wingers in this country who are blaming the fact that they can't enter a relationship with a woman on the Jews? That's the reason?
Look, man, Israel might have done a lot of things wrong, but if you can't get laid, that was not on them, brothers, let alone Jewish people at large.
Also, Andrew Tate, who's the male version of the regarded Pearl Davis, has like the most idiotic view of the 2 genders you could imagine. Oh yes, all females in the United States are just on TikTok and they're all entitled, and these poor men, they can't find a good woman because of that. Like, enough with the pathetic excuses, okay? Like, take ownership of your loserdom instead of pointing to other people. Now, the economic stuff though that he mentioned, I think he might have a point there, okay? But I would word it a little differently. I'm curious what you think. I'll tell you what I mean in just a second.
Yeah, so guys, this is what I mean by problem and solution, right? So he just happens to be in the news today, and it's a good example to talk through. So he's not the only one that's figured out what the real problem is. Most people have figured out what the real problem is, right? So the problem is economics. The problem is, yes, the jobs are not paying enough. What have you heard us say for the last 20 years on the Young Turks? Wages have not gone up in 50 years when adjusted for inflation, and prices continue to go up. So that is going to create basically economic calamity for real Americans. Now, the thing is, the people in charge don't feel any of it. In fact, they feel the opposite because it is wealth redistribution to the top. So they keep getting richer and richer, and they don't know, a lot of them don't know that they're the ones stealing all the money, right? Or taking all the money. And then it's a little taking, a little stealing. And so they think like, well, I don't get it, everything's great. Let's press down more on the average American, right? Let's make their lives a little bit more miserable, but they don't know that they're doing that. So they can't even understand the core problem. The only people who don't understand the problem is people in establishment media and almost everyone in government. And they're all incredibly rich, incredibly privileged, and elitists. All right, it's time for New Year's resolutions. We all make them, but I'm not making any big flashy resolutions that are gonna crash and burn by February. My reset is much simpler. It's about giving myself a break in the kitchen. Not by eating less, don't be crazy. But let's be honest, thinking about what to eat, shopping for it, cooking it, it's a drain. And when you're drained from cooking, you can't focus on the work that matters, and that's the work right here. That's where Cook Unity comes in. It's been my way of cheating. Like I have a personal chef. I'm very fancy that way, please. But without the insane cost. Restaurant quality meals on my schedule. So I ordered a bunch of things that I loved. So we got the pepperoni naan pizza. I love pepperoni pizza, I love naan. You put it together, it's genius. Golden chicken schnitzel. It's schnitzel, but it's golden. Okay, this stuff is all so good. New Orleans shrimp and grits. They have sausage in there too, love it. And that's my point, guys. These aren't boring and repetitive meals. These are all-star chefs, Food Network alum, and James Beard winners. Handpicking seasonal ingredients and balancing bold flavors with nutrition. Every meal is a small batch masterpiece delivered fresh, never frozen. It makes hitting wellness goals effortless because a nutritious, incredible meal is ready in minutes. No shopping, no cooking, no cleanup. You can browse by chef, by cuisine, filter macros to the gram, not a thing I would do, but you could. And it's way less than takeout or even grocery store prices. Plus their packaging is part of a reusable, eco-friendly program. You can't ask for more. Taste comfort and craftsmanship in every bite from the award-winning chefs behind Cook Unity. Go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter code TYT before checkout to get 50% off your first order. That's 50% off your first order by using code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT. So Andrew Tate doesn't deserve a medal for figuring out the obvious, which is the problem is economic, right?
Yeah.
And the elites have crushed the average American. So we figured that out 20 years ago. So thank you for catching up. So now the question is, what is the solution? And so he's saying, well, some think the solution is like the problem is being created by the Jews, so the solution would be to hate the Jews. That's ludicrous.
No, that's not a solution to anything. And this is the thing though, I feel like the way he communicates about this, he almost like disconnects the anger and frustration people are feeling economically from the reality of our government prioritizing Israel, not Jews, Israel, a foreign country, prioritizing them over the American people. And you wanna know something? That enrages me to no end. Now, I'm not an idiot, so I don't cave into the dumb ideology of hate. I'm not gonna blame Jewish people for that. I'm gonna blame a nation state that has undue influence over our politicians because we have a broken political system that has legalized bribery. And foreign countries, Israel being the first one, the most successful one, take advantage of that. So we probably are the show that emphasizes this the most. For God's sake, separate out Israel and Jews, okay? Jewish Americans are our brothers and sisters, and you should under no circumstances discriminate against them. Israel is a foreign government. Easy to understand unless you're a propagandist for Israel, right? Exactly.
Because I am Turkish ethnically, but I do not represent the Turkish government, and the Turkish government does not represent me. I'm an American, I have nothing to do with the Turkish government. Jewish Americans are Americans, have nothing to do with the Israeli government, okay? So now if someone here in this country says, yeah, but I love Israel way more than I love America, and I demand that you give all your money to Israel, and I demand that you ignore their war crimes. Okay, they're Israel first. And so they're like raising their hand and going, I don't really give a damn about America. I love Israel and I want to manipulate America into giving money to Israel and aiding and abetting them. That's a different category. Those are people who have made a political decision in that direction. They do not represent all Jewish Americans. In fact, a giant number of Jewish Americans totally disagree and are fighting back against that group, right? So it is very harmful and incorrect. It is factually incorrect to say the Jews. That's absurd.
Yep.
On the other hand, if you'd like special dispensation for Israel and how we should fund them for the rest of our life, you can take a long walk off a short dock. So Israel could go pound sand. We should give them $0. They're a foreign government in the middle of a genocide, and their government is disgusting.
Yep.
Different governments do terrible things at different times. Right now, it happens to be Israel doing the terrible thing, and obviously we shouldn't fund them. But did they cause you to not get laid in America? No, that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna tell you what the real problem is in a second. Back to you, Heather.
No, I mean about getting laid.
No, the
Like
real
just-
problem in America overall, not the getting laid part.
No, the real problem, Jake, I mean, the real problem in America overall is we have a government that doesn't serve us. We have a government that serves a foreign country. And so when you're walking the streets in your own neighborhood and you see everything crumbling, when you hear members of Congress nickel and dime the American people when it comes to things like healthcare, when it comes to things like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, when you hear people like Ben Shapiro talk about how you should never retire, retiring at 65 is insane, it makes you angry because it seems like we have unlimited money for Israel, but when it comes to our own people, we leave them in the dust. We neglect them, we forget about them, we let them live and die on the streets. That's what infuriates people, okay? Now, some people will turn to bigotry, hatred, discrimination. Others want to change the political system so others don't take advantage of our politicians, so they neglect us and look out and prioritize a foreign country.
All right, so I think the solution is a little bit broader than that, but I understand everything you're saying. Let's give them the rest of the clips and then I'll give what I think is the solution.
Oh, okay, fine. Let's go to one more clip. Next one.
I don't think it matters what Israel does, or Bibi, what he says, or what Trump says. I don't think any of that matters. When you have all these men out here who have no hope of building a good life, they're gonna find somebody to blame for it, whether it's immigrants. That's what it is in European countries. There's definitely a large percentage of people on the internet who are looking for someone to blame as opposed to taking personal responsibility to fix the problem. There's no Jew that's stopping you from going to the gym and being in good shape. No Jew is stopping you walking into a gym. So like you have personal responsibility and personal accountability. And in many situations, even if they're unfair, even if the game is rigged, the best thing you can do is say, well, these are the rules I'm playing within and I have to try and win and take absolute personal responsibility for everything.
Personal responsibility or lack of taking personal responsibility is not the issue here. There's literally nothing Americans can do to improve the economic disaster that we are dealing with thanks to our government making decisions that do not prioritize us. Going to the gym isn't gonna solve that.
So when he talked about blaming the Jews, he mainly talked about Nick Fuentes. In that little clip there, that was, especially for Tate, shockingly accurate. He said, look, in Europe, they're trying to find someone to blame them. They're blaming immigrants. Here, some are blaming Jews, right? And that is wrong. So he's right about personal responsibility overall as a concept, but Anna's also right. Yes, but our government has to set fair rules, right? And so that gets us to the real solution. And the solution is money out of politics. Why? Because guys, as long as we have legalized bribery, it's not just Israel. Every single lobby is going to rob us until the cows come home. We cannot negotiate drug prices. That's insane. That is the least free market thing you could imagine. And our media gaslights us and tells us, no, that's perfectly normal. No, literally no other country does it. And no other country has legalized bribery like we have. But our media tells us it's perfectly normal. Everybody shut up. And what's happened is, well, all those companies have paid for lower wages. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25. That's $15,000 a year if you work every single day for the whole year, Monday through Friday. Now, why have they kept those wages low? Because the business interests are giving to the politicians, And their number one cost is what? You guys, employees. So they order their dogs in Congress, hey, come here, puppy, okay, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. Lower wages, stupid average Americans, crush them. Higher drug prices, higher housing prices. Why? Because they make more money if the housing prices are higher, drug prices are higher. Oil companies are like, give me subsidies, rob the average American and give it to me. And every dog in Congress goes, yes, sir, of course, sir. Where's my bribe, sir? Oh, yes, I got the bribe. So the people in Congress are the ones you should be furious at. They have betrayed you. And they're actively trying to kill the American dream as we speak. Also, you should be furious at establishment media that has helped them trick all of you into thinking this is normal. None of this is normal. And the rage is building. And when the rage then erupts in unhealthy ways where people mislead you about the solution. Oh, if you just hate immigrants enough, if you just hate Jews enough, that'll fix it. How the hell would that fix it? And who has the real power, guys? Is it the guy who crossed the border a minute ago with no money? Is it the guy on your left, the guy on your right? No, of course the guys with the power are the ones up top with all the money and power. The people that the mainstream media is protecting. The politicians are serving. So if you can get money out of politics, you'll end the corruption. Wolf-PAC.com. I mean, look, I set up Wolf PAC to do it. There's a million ways you could do it, but we've got to get the money out. If we don't, here's what corporations are gonna do eventually, because we live under corporate rule. They're going to get your wages to a barely sustainable level. Now, I've been all across the country, and what everyone is telling me is, I'm at a barely sustainable level. I can't save anymore. I can't save at all. And meanwhile, the prices have gone up so much. I talked to, and this is a funny thing to say, but an Ethiopian immigrant in America, and he told me, I might go back to Ethiopia soon. I was like, really? I've almost never heard that from any immigrant that comes to America. And they said, well, in America, you can't save any money. And then I turned and I looked to see how can I buy a house, and the housing prices are astronomical. So the dream is gone. The dream is gone.
This is a dying empire, okay? Following 9/11, when we started engaging in all of these Middle East wars on behalf of Israel, by the way, we went from having an economic surplus to now drowning in $40 trillion in debt, okay? We're sending more military assets to Iran right now as we speak, because of course, we're not governed by the United States of America. We're not governed by the American government. Okay, we take marching orders from a foreign government, and people are angry about that. They're not bad people for being angry about that. But if you feel the anger, don't let that be redirected toward hatred toward innocent people or an entire group of people. And yes, I'm talking about Jewish individuals. There are many Jewish individuals who have a huge problem with our broken political system and a huge problem with what was carried out in Gaza and continues to be carried out in Gaza at the hands of the Israelis. So just be smart and judge people as individuals.
Yeah, last thing on it is, to back up what Anna's saying on two fronts. One, we have $38 trillion deficit right now, and just like 8 trillion of the 38, which is a giant number, was on the global war on terror, which is actually the global war on Israel's enemies. So not only did we give them $300 billion, not only have we enabled their genocide, et cetera, and given them an extra 30 billion for that, but we spent 8 trillion trying to destroy all of their enemies. Why?
And we're not done yet, by
Why?
the way. We're not done yet.
And that's why I tell you, establishment media is one of the biggest cancers in this country. They pretend to be objective, they're the exact opposite. As we were throwing that money in the trash, they kept telling us, we have to do it, we have to do it. Israel's so special and wonderful, we have to kill all of their enemies and spend $8 trillion doing it, okay? So, but back to Anna's second point, well, who was the guy who was most against that? Bernie Sanders, okay? And I fought like hell for Bernie Sanders to win in 2016 and 2020 because it doesn't have anything to do with religion. It has to do with what's in your head and what's in your heart. And Bernie Sanders is a wonderful guy. There's many other wonderful people that are fighting for the right reasons. Do not make it about religion. You fall into the trap of hatred and we never get out of that. Go back towards the light. and say, stand for America, get our government back, not just from Israel, but from all of the lobbyists and all of the donors. And you'll never do that until you end the corruption. Anyone who isn't talking about the corruption is trying to deceive you. And that includes almost all of the rest of media. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.